So I asked Grok, who controls Canada's uranium? He says, Canada does. Easy. So I say, a journalist told me that ultimately Canada's uranium is under American supervision. Grok says, no. And then I say, this journalist says it's kind of a double standard that America can be a nuclear weapon state and Canada can't. Grok says, well, Canada benefits from the U.S. extended deterrent. Canadians are part of the American Defense Alliance. And then I say, well, given that it's 2026 and Trump is talking about Canada being the 51st state, and Canadian intelligence agencies are taking it as a real threat and doing models and analysis, Grok says, yeah, you're right, that's fair. But ultimately, Grok says this arrangement still delivers concrete benefits. Canada is still working with America very closely, NORAD, etc. And it's about protecting against Russia and China. And then I say, what evidence is there that China is aggressive? History suggests they are not. The people suggesting China will invade Canada are usually American hawks and patriots and agents. Grok changes the word and says the issue is China's action in recent decades is showing a growing pattern of assertiveness. Oh no. And so I call Grok on it because I said, you said we're scared of Chinese incursions into Canada. And he says, specific to Canada and the Arctic, no credible evidence or serious analysts suggest China plans to literally invade Canada. It's actually about hybrid threats, espionage, influence, and resource competition. Well, what's wrong with resource competition? Aren't we all about capitalism? Anyways, I say Canadian intelligence is heavily influenced by American intelligence. Critics say Canadian intelligence is completely compromised by CIA. Grok says, nah. Canadian intelligence stands by itself. And then Grok says, CSIS, Canadian intelligence, is completely independent, but it does work with the Five Eyes, intelligence alliances and things like that. So I say, who is the de facto leader in the Five Eyes? And Grok admits that the United States has primus inter pares status, primacy. They are the first among equals. So Five Eyes has no formal hierarchy, but there's a clear hierarchy in practice. The U.S. has so much resources, their scope is so much larger that Canadian intelligence is not compromised, but it is heavily interdependent by design, Grok says. So when you hear people saying Canadian intelligence has determined that China is doing bad things to Uyghurs in Xinjiang, that information is coming from America, likely. And that's when I'll point you to the other video I did talking about how poor the research, the sources, the actual information is coming from Washington or these NGOs funded by Washington, right? The Guardian used an image claiming to be a Uyghur prison, but it was a camel milk culture farm, like for people who like camels. This tweet is what inspired this video. David Jacobs, he's a doctor. He's got a decent following on Twitter. He's part of all these high IQ circles, but that doesn't mean he's invulnerable to brainwashing. Just because you're high IQ and you're a very respected professional doesn't mean anything, because your life, your beliefs, your circumstances, the media you consumed might lead you to the place where you think, oh, U.S. is our lifelong ally and partner. Henry Kissinger would tell you there are no permanent allies or partners. There's only interests. And when interests align, we can work together. What did Kissinger say? It's dangerous to be America's enemy, but fatal to be America's friend. Well, given Canada's situation, Canada's geography with America, I think Canada and America will continue to get along as much as they can, despite the saber rattling and tough talk and well-crafted speeches at Davos. The reality is Canada and America is very intertwined. And if Canada wants to get closer to Beijing, I am sure America won't love it. So Canada will have a balancing act to play for the years ahead. I hope all the best for Canada. The next time you hear someone tell you, Canadian intelligence is totally independent and we have our own stuff, you can just say, all right, buddy, good for you. Just out for a rip, eh?